Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So this is going to be a brief video. I'm going to do this video and another video right after it tonight. So Jay-Z appeared on CNN with Van Jones, and he was asked about Donald Trump and his comments. Donald Trump, as you all know, referred to Africa and Haiti as shithole countries. And this is what Jay-Z had to say. He talked about how that comment was disappointing and hurtful because essentially the president is looking down on the entire population. And he went on to describe Trump's comments as misinformed. He said these are beautiful people and they have beautiful everything, referring to parts of Africa. As we know, Jay-Z has traveled to Africa. He's been involved in some projects in Africa. And he also talked about how to address problems of racism. He talked about how Donald Sterling lost his team and all that kind of stuff because of some racist comments that have been exposed. And he was basically saying because of things like that, a lot of the racists are forced to go underground with their racism. And essentially what you have is a situation where people are spraying perfume on a trash can and really not addressing the garbage within that trash can. And, he also drew the analogy of people trying to fumigate and all that kind of stuff. And basically what happens is the bugs go in hiding and they get stronger and more resistant. And he went on to call Donald Trump a superbug, using that analogy. So in response, President Trump put out some tweets about black unemployment. And I'm going to read some excerpts from this article in the New York Times that addresses this issue. So in response to Jay-Z's comments, Donald Trump said this. He said, please inform Jay-Z that because of my policies, black unemployment has been reported to be at the lowest rate ever recorded. And also Donald Trump said this. He said unemployment for black Americans is the lowest ever recorded. Trump's approval ratings with African Americans has doubled, and he goes on. Now, this article raises some important points about this whole taking credit for the low unemployment rate in the black community, and it's something that I've talked about before. This article points out how, yes, Donald Trump is right that the unemployment rate has gone down. The black unemployment rate has gone to its lowest level in quite some time. But the fact of the matter is, the issue is whether or not Donald Trump had anything to do with it. That's the issue. Because as I've said in my prior video, there are no policies that this man helped pass that resulted or that can be linked to this low unemployment rate in the black community. Also, this article points out how the black unemployment rate has been on a decline for years, on a steady decline. It says the rate has been in decline for several years, declining steadily from 16.4% in August 2011 to 7.8% in January 2017. And then it also points out how even though there's been a decline, the black unemployment rate is still double that of the white unemployment rate. So that means that there's still a problem that needs to be addressed with respect to unemployment. And, this also points out what I've said about policy. It talks about how if you think the economy is driven by concrete, specific policies around taxes, spending, monetary policy, and regulation, the answer is no to the question about whether or not Donald Trump can claim credit for the low unemployment rate in the black community. And then it says if you think that it's really just about the mood in the executive suite, then maybe he had a role to play. But the fact of the matter is economies are driven by policies. If this man is saying that he had some kind of impact on the economy, he needs to be able to point to some kind of policy that he implemented to make a difference in the black community. This man cannot point to any policy that has a direct correlation to this decline in black unemployment. because this man has only passed one policy, and that's this tax cuts for the rich, as I've said before. What kind of policies has he passed that have increased job opportunities in the black community? Again, as this article reports, there's been a steady decline in this problem. And, I think that his response to this whole thing is, it doesn't even address the core issue that was raised in that interview between Jay-Z and Van Jones. Van Jones and Jay-Z, they were addressing the president's racist comments about Africa and Haiti. But instead of addressing that particular issue, this man, Donald Trump, wants to talk about unemployment rates that he can't even really legitimately claim credit for. And also, the fact that he does that, is further proof in my mind that this man, in fact, did make those statements. Because it seems like if he really did not make those statements, the first thing that he would have said was that I did not make those statements. It seems like that would be the first tweet that he would put out to dispel any lies that he made the statement. He would have said no. He would have denied that. And in fact, when this whole thing first came out, it took him, a few days to actually try to deny these allegations. And in fact, the White House did not deny these allegations. It was only later when they invented this lie that somehow this man didn't call Africa and Haiti shitholes. So my point is this, man. You can't take credit for unemployment. He's failed to address this issue of his racist statements about Haiti and Africa. And, I think that Jay-Z made some valid points. I mean, just because a country, for instance, is a developing country, that doesn't mean that that country is a shithole. Just because a country has issues that they're dealing with, that doesn't mean that they are a shithole. Even a place like Haiti, one of the poorest countries, if not the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, even that country has a rich history. It has a rich culture. And the people there are valuable regardless, and precious and beautiful regardless of the economic conditions that they have to deal with. And the same is true for the African continent. We know that Africa is rich in material resources. We know that many African countries are developed and advanced. They have technology just like any other urban areas and stuff like that. They have skyscrapers. Often people put out these ideas that everybody's living in huts and everybody's living primitive and horrible in Africa. And that's not true. There are plenty of beautiful places all over the African continent and beautiful people. But yet this racist bigot, Donald Trump, decides to tarnish an entire continent and an entire country. And it just speaks to how much of an asshole Donald Trump is. His whole perspective is the problem. His whole attitude is the real shithole. He's the real shithead, period. So anyway, those are my thoughts about this whole situation. Tell me what y'all think. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Peace.